Okay, let's go to TriMet. As you pointed out, TriMet is cutting 170 jobs, and people say, oh my God, but they've got a $224 million deficit, and cutting all those jobs is only going to cut a quarter of that?
Yeah, TriMet's been out of control for a decade or more. Their ridership peaked back in 2012, and yet they keep expanding their costs. Looking back over the last decade, they've given employees 37% in pay raises. The reckoning should have happened with the pandemic lockdowns, but as we know, the federal government and the state government stepped in, and TriMet got $670 million in COVID relief money that allowed them to avoid making painful cuts that were necessary to try and keep their costs in line. And instead, they've actually increased their costs every single year. And it's to the point that now TriMet ought to be in bankruptcy, and they're finally having to make cuts. But the cuts that they're talking about are nowhere near enough to actually put their fiscal house in order.
Well, in fact, John, if you were to, and I would expect you'd be the guy who would have done this because you follow this issue a lot more closely than me. But if cutting 170, that's 400 positions thought to be eliminated, but 140 were already vacant, and the union workers will be eligible to return to prior union positions. So you got the unions in this too. But if it only cut a quarter of the money they need to cut, if they were to cut, say, 600 workers, that would take it down by enough to fill the gap. But at that point, you'd have an agency that doesn't really have any employees, wouldn't you?
Well, it's a good start, and one of the problems is TriMet is bloated with administrative staff. And so I would look to cut 2/3 of the staff that are needed from their administration and their overhead that way. Number one. Number two, they ought to be looking, their core mission is transit. Well, the best, most flexible transit service is bus service. Yep. So they could cut the West Rail project, they could cut a bunch of the light rail and trim TriMet down to a point where they actually could provide reasonable service for the people in the Portland metro area at an affordable cost. But the board of directors, almost all appointed by the governor, refused to make those hard decisions and force the discussion onto what can the people afford and what is the best, most affordable service we can provide.
So they're just going to keep on doing what they're doing, try to keep the wheels on the bus turning, but at the end of the day, they're financially broke. They're bankrupt.
Yes.
Except the wheels haven't stopped turning yet.
No, and sadly, another frustrating part is they're wanting to spend $350 million on their 82nd Avenue bus rapid transit system that's going to eliminate a lane of traffic in each direction for cars.
And it's going to jam up traffic forever. That is Representative John Lee. He represents District 18, Position 2. John, thanks very much. Back in a moment.